Today we are covering the easiest rat of the Lich King specs for every role. That said, I'm tired. I'm tired of people telling me that I should make a video on this. People asking me what is the easiest thing to play. You know what? Today is the day that I quell those thirst for knowledge. And we're gonna start with tanking. The best, the chattest, the manliest role in the game. The bear tank. The bear tank, I've been dabbling that bear tank in the last few weeks actually in Rat of the Lich King. It is by far the easiest tank I've ever played. The bear tank is extremely simple. It has a lot of abilities. It is true it has a lot more buttons than say your paladin, but those buttons are very flowchart oriented. Not even flowchart. How could we call a flowchart that has only one line? This is extremely simple. Most of your abilities are not situational at all. You could probably automate this entire thing. A macro for popping out your defensive cooldowns. If you wanna pull, just heal on time yourself and go in so you can get like a little bit of HP and threat, and you just spam swipe all day. All damn day. If you're single target tanking, you can do Lacerate, you have Berserk, like a great cooldown for aggro, and that's it. You got Bark Skin, you got Frenzy Regeneration, you got a whole bunch of crap you can pop, a whole lot of cheating tools, you know, a lot of superpowers you can use to basically not care about anything you do. And you just pull everything you can at once because you can do that. The more gear you get, the better it gets. By far, it scales very well because of how better mechanics do with armor and HP. You become a late game monster basically. It is not hard to hold aggro at all because swipe is now AoE instead of limited to 3 targets. Maul, with the glyph of Maul, is basically cleave. You hit more targets with it. 2 additional targets, I believe. Or 1, I don't know. It doesn't matter. You get a free cleave every time you maul. It doesn't get no better than that, homo. Oh no. Again, it has a lot of tools, but in the real world, when you're playing it, you can just autopilot it and nobody's gonna know this. The next tank, because you gotta have a second option, the PROT Pally. That's right, PROT Pally is always will be my boy. The PROT Paladin is perhaps, alongside the Blood Decay, the strongest late game tank in the game. The PROT Paladin has insane mitigation, especially AoE. You got Read Out, you got 70 trillion things that proc your block rating and make you really hard to hit. You have the highest HP scaling in the game. You have pretty much everything at your disposal. You have so many defensive cooldowns. You have so many support utility oriented cooldowns. You got Blessing of Hand of Freedom, sorry. Vanilla Andy. But you got Hand of Freedom, you got Hand of Protection, you have a Neo-Yoi raised taunt like every other class now. Either way, the PROT Paladin is never going to fail you. The PROT Paladin is baby. Moving on, we're gonna talk about the DPS roles in the game. DPS has a bunch. I put actually a bunch of easy classes in here. In TVC, a lot of classes were like 1 or 2 button spammers. In Rat of the Lich King, that is not so much the case anymore, but there are still some that slip through the cracks and are pretty damn simple. So we're gonna start with the Elemental Shaman, and you can see this guy right here, destroying this liberal elf with facts and logic and lightning bolts, mostly lightning bolts. The Elemental Shaman is pretty much almost a copy-paste of the TVC Elemental Shaman, and that means you're gonna press 2 buttons and you're gonna like it. It is pretty strong, not the strongest, but pretty strong, pretty decent. People always like having a shaman, even though shamans are not nearly as powerful as they once were in TVC. They are still important, people love them. You got heroism, of course, or bloodlust, whatever you wanna call it. Excellent class. You are never gonna be failing to choose an Elemental Shaman. Then you got the Frost Decay. This is probably the most memed class of all of Rat for being the easiest, and it really is. You can play this class with the like, you see this mouse, it has 2 buttons on the side. That's all you need. This thing, you don't need this thing. This thing is out. Screw the keyboard. Nobody needs a keyboard when you're playing a Frost Decay. It is very simple. It is the most melee class possible. There's nothing really to think about. You just wait for a proc eventually sometimes, and that's pretty much it. Just DPS. Blue mouse, are you a liberal? No, it has colors on the side, okay? I could get this mouse either on white or on blue, and I'm not gonna get on white. It's gonna turn like really disgusting in a few minutes, okay? Trust me. Shut up. This is a class I covered, even though I covered it for PvP before. But okay. This class I explained it on PvP, and I explained your abilities, your build, and your stats priorities in 3 minutes. Okay, this is how long it takes to learn a destruction lock. You can tell by now what it's gonna be like. Yes, if you're playing PvE destruction lock, it is also very simple, very easy. Even on PvE, it is very good because even though it is not the best, Affliction is and will be always the best spec to play in Rat. It just is, the numbers are there. But this spec is very mobile, you're not locked as much as you're with Affliction, so you can get away with doing a lot of stuff and you can have an easier time doing mechanics. You cannot stay on fire as much. It is really potent in AoE and single target. 2 buttons, 3 buttons, and that's pretty much it. Still pretty respectable spec and one of my favorites, even though I gotta play the Affliction lock, because if I'm gonna play a Warlock, I'm gonna pump. That's just how I do. Okay, we're moving on to the Combat Rogue. Not a class I am very experienced with, but guess what? You don't have to be very experienced with the Combat Rogue to be a good Combat Rogue. That's the whole point of this video, man. It is very simple, very mobile. You have a lot of defensive cooldowns, you have a lot of oops buttons, you know, you got your cloak, you got your sprint, whatever, you know, you can get away with freaking up a lot of mechanics and you're still gonna be fine. You got evasion, oh, I got the evasion, not much to say about it, sadly, but that's actually a good thing. It means that it's easy. Now we got the Arcane Mage. Props to Captain Grimm for giving me this picture. He didn't give it to me, I just stole it. Pretty simple, pretty easy. 2 buttons, go in, pew 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 pew, take the bolts, and that's pretty much it, you know, the missiles, that's pretty much it. Fire Mage, pretty much the same thing, even though it is a little more complex. You gotta handle some dots, you gotta handle some procs. It is still pretty easy, you're not gonna have trouble playing a Fire Mage. It is still one of the most competent. If you wanna learn how to play a Fire Mage, or Mage in general actually, you should check out my boy Gnev. Doesn't feel like making videos right now, but he will eventually, okay? I'm gonna chastise him until he does. I'm gonna get that boy one day, I'm gonna get that boy, trust me. There's a lot of high level mages out there, there's a lot of good resources to learn a mage, and mages are always in demand in RAT, so you're not gonna have no problem at all. We are moving to healing. Hallelujah. First you got the Resto Druid. The Resto Druid is a very simple class to play. It is competent both AoE and single target healing. You have a lot of heal on time abilities, you have a lot of good cooldowns. This is one of the things that I think makes it a very easy class to play, that if you're not being the cleanest, if you're not being the most solid healer and you mess up and somebody gets really low, you got a lot of cooldowns to pop them back up really fast. Even if you overheal, overhealing is kind of the design of a druid. You don't really get punished too much for overhealing. Resto Druids, very competent, very easy, they have a lot of utility too, but yeah, you got Innervate, you got a lot of abilities, you got a lot of really good utility, which makes you valuable even if you're not the best player yourself. People are still gonna love you, and that's why I think it is the easiest, but I put another alternative because not everybody likes the Druid, and this is the Holy Paladin. This comes with a caveat though. The Holy Paladin sucks. It just sucks. Its only niche in PvE is to heal the tank, and that's it. Its AoE is non-existent, negligible, terrible. It has no shielding, no heal on times, no nothing, only some instant heals. It has no cooldowns to like fix your mistakes. But if you are just tasked with healing the tank, you just pop 2 buttons and the tank is up all the time. Not very impressive, not very fun, but if you got somebody in your guild that needs a tank healer and you can make sure that you're not gonna get kicked out of that guild, because if you gotta do anything else with the Holy Paladin you're screwed. If it's just that, you're gonna be pretty good. And that concludes my entire slideshow presentation of the easiest specs in the game. I might do one of the hardest. That's actually gonna take some research because I tend to steer away from the hardest specs in the game for good reason. I am not a good player. Look at these fingers. If I am being quite honest with you, take the easiest spec. There's no point in taking the hardest specs. They're gonna be sought after anyway. You're just gonna look like a fool. It takes a lot to be doing mechanics and at the same time be doing everything else. Personally, me, that's not how I like to play. Even though I like min-maxing sometimes, it's meh. Anyway, if you like this video, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for we got a lot more coming, and join the Discord. Join the Discord. It's gonna be on the pinned comment. I'm gonna link it on chat right now. We're trying to rework the Discord and make it like a proper Discord thingy. So stay tuned for that, and thank you so much. See you later, West Coast.